Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off. Breathe in through nose, out the mouth.
2 years ago, I went to my first smoker, and I went up against this kid who he was young, but I think we're around the same skill level. If not, I was slightly better. But during the entire fight sequence, or during the entire match sequence, I blew my shoulder out. Not like in a complete negative way, not to the point where I can't use it, but to the point where I my shoulder hasn't been the same since then, right? And at the time, I didn't view it as, oh no, I did view it as a big deal, but not like I need to go get like physical therapy, big deal. Not maybe I need to, start adjusting the way I move my shoulder. Nothing like that. It's more so just like I was emotionally concerned about it because I didn't want it to ruin my life. Because I like my arms, I like moving my hands normally. Unfortunately, later on, when I moved to Las Vegas, right, I remember sparring, and with this one kid, I go through a jab to his body, but he was too far, and I threw out my shoulder again. And it was manageable. The pain was manageable, but I was always wondering, like, why was it always happening to me in in those specific moments? And the answer to that is I realized when I was hitting the bag, is that whenever I throw my shoulder, I'd try to throw it as hard as I could, but also I threw it sloppy. I throw it sloppy on the bag, and on the bag, the consequences are not that bad because you're hitting a bag, no one's hitting you back, and you don't really get to see that sequence. And you don't really get to see the consequences of your practice, right? But after I realized that, I started to, adjust the way I practice on the bag. I make sure I'm at a distance. I practiced, getting into distance. I measured where my jab would be. When the bag was moving, I used that as an opportunity to learn my range. But essentially, what I'm getting at here is that repetition is the way you get better. But more importantly, repetition only gets better, only grows. Repetition only grows when you're feeding it, whether it's good or bad, right? And that's something we're going to go over today, why repetition is the thing that may or may not be holding you back, as well as going over proper tactics when it comes to repetition in your regular life. Almost across all combat sports, right, the jab is one of the most important parts. The jab in your footwork are some of the most important aspects or important part of, well, I want to say striking arts or combat sports. Not necessarily across like all of them, because there's multiple of them, and the jab may not be applicable to it, but almost throughout almost all combat sports, there is something basic that you must have or learn in order to be kind of good at the sport. Okay, for example, Muay Thai, they be doing 100 kicks a day. Like, those drills where you just see them go bang and a bah, bah, bah. I can't even kick that high. I'm not even gonna try, right? I lose balance personally. But in a jiu-jitsu grappling or a grappling school, right, you'll have them do the drills where they have you like slide on the floor. You know the drills, right? If you're a grappler, you already know, right? Well, they have you slide on your knees. They have you do rollovers. They have you flip over on your back, whatever that is, right? They'll have you repeat those over and over again. Heck, they might even have you sprawl, right? Like, and even in the gym setting, right? Even in the gym setting, right? Usually, you want to do the same movements, same routine, no matter what, just so that you can progress a lot better, as long as you have proper form and you're not messing up, right? Consistently. But regardless of which sport you're in, right, you need to repeat the same actions over and over again perfectly in order for you to get better and to perform better on a regular basis. I'm so sorry that my shadow boxing is garbage. I'm trying to think and shadow box, but whatever. I think as a kid, I remember I was always told that like practice makes perfect. But over time, I understood that perfect practice makes perfect, right? Something a lot of people skip over is the fact that you have to practice perfectly. Because if you don't, not only are you not improving, right? You are actively making your life worse because you're practicing in the wrong way and making that a habit. You know, I hear firearm courses or classes where you have to teach somebody how to shoot a gun. It's a lot better for them to not know anything because they're a blank canvas. They don't have bad practices that you have to unteach them in order for them to learn better, right? Even for me, with my whole jab story, is that if I was just simply practicing my jab properly, or being conscientious, or being conscious, I'm not even sure that's the right word, but being conscious about the way I was shooting my jab. Like even right now, shadow boxing, right? I'm already feeling, especially in my feet, I'm struggling with my footwork, right? But because if I don't kill that right now, in a match, I might have my feet right here, I have my feet like here, you know, or I'll be square, anything like that, and I'll get caught with something, not necessarily because I'm bad at the sport, but because I wasn't practicing properly and being mindful of my feet when I was shadow boxing or when I was jabbing or anything like that, right? It's just that ultimately repetition is an amplifier for whatever you're doing, okay? Repetition is not like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a good thing, but it is neutral across the board. And if you're practicing in a bad way, if you're practicing in a good way, it's going to only amplify whatever you're doing, okay? And especially when you add volume to that, when I'm throwing out hundreds, thousands of jabs on a regular basis, I may not get the same level of, I may not improve at the same level because I've been practicing the wrong way. But we've already said that like 3 times in a different way already, so let's get to the exercises. The hidden mechanics behind repetition is not even necessarily that you repeat the same thing all the time. It's the idea that you'll do it so often that you don't have to think about it anymore, that your body does it automatically, hopefully effectively. And this is why perfect practice is important, because if you're not thinking about how lazy your jab is, right, and you want to keep it sharp, how lazy your jab is, how you want to keep it sharp, you do that in an actual fight where you're going to lower your jab, someone's going to come over the top, and then you're kind of done for, or that's going to be a habit they can exploit throughout the entire fight, right? Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna get 10 jabs in, and I'm gonna continue talking. those are rough, right? Even then, I overextended my elbow, and I wasn't considering about what was into range, and I was throwing a little bit too much force, and I think I was telegraphing a little bit, right? But just like I was saying before about repetition, repetition does not necessarily just matter in the martial arts world. It matters everywhere else in your life as well. When it comes to sales, school, where else? Freaking gym, just lifting weights. Whether it's conversational skills, whether it's dang near any learnable skill, you're going to need repetition. You're going to need to get the reps in order to become better, right? And I'm going to say this again because that's why you need to practice perfectly. Because if you're not conscious about it, if you're not like trying to intentionally grow, if you're not getting some extra eyes on it, then you're going to eventually come across a problem that you don't know where it started, why it started, and how it's affecting you now. You're not going to realize that until 6 months later, until you're in a high pressure situation. In this case, it's boxing. So in the fight or whatever, if you can't react in high intense situations, then it's not really going to work as much. This way? Yeah. The value of repetition is that you don't have to think about it anymore. You know, even when I'm in school, I want to become so good at troubleshooting that I don't have to think about it anymore. I can see the issue, not think about it, and just have the answer automatically, right? Repetition clears your mind to let you think about other things in that moment. You know, when you're able to see your opponent's moves, when you're able to understand the problem, you can actually think about solutions, because remembering the basics was the problem that a lot of people had in the first place. And now that you have the basics down, now you can actually focus on, okay, my opponent's coming at me, I should probably hook away. Or, you know, you can finally start to see patterns because you are so focused on, you're less focused on yourself and more focused on things that you can improve upon, because you already have the basics down and you've been practicing perfectly. Jeez, my feet are disgusting. The way you practice, the way you repeat yourself can make or break you. How are you going to be able to improve without making mistakes, right? It really takes two things, but we can go over the first one, is that one, you cannot practice without being conscious of what you're practicing, right? Mindless repetition, unless you do things perfectly without thinking about it, is going to ultimately make a bad habit that you may not be able to see. Like even now, right? Well, I'm gonna talk about it in the next step, but every rep needs something that you need to think about on a regular basis. Like for me, it's just being able not to telegraph my jab. If I go up here, right, I'm in my stance, does it look like I'm gonna throw a punch at you? Does it look like it? I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. I want to say my shoulders give me away, but I'm not necessarily sure, right? But I'm going to rewatch this footage over again, and I'm going to learn that, maybe I need to, not do this when I'm throwing my punches, but more so let my waist do that instead, just as an example, okay? The second thing that you already do this anyway, is you need a mentor, right? Trainers don't just say quality reps matter just because it sounds good, right? You cannot see yourself. That's not necessarily a personal character trait, but it's just biology, right? You don't know what angles you look like. You don't know what mistakes you're making, even on video, right? If you're not actively trying to get some extra eyes on it, get a coach, get a mentor to look at your form or look at whatever thing that you're working on, then ultimately your repetitions are going to harm you more. May harm you more than you initially thought, right? That's why you need a person who's an expert to look at you, to check your form, and to give you some advice if necessary, right? But essentially what I'm getting at is that intentionality without feedback is a gift, and feedback without intentionality doesn't stick. So you really need both. Right? You really need both. But essentially, Romans 5 matter of fact, I'm gonna give you an example right now, right? I right now am practicing 100 drafts, 100 crosses, and 100 crosses, so that way I can actually pick out my form in it. Now, doing this for a YouTube video is applicable, but it doesn't really give me my full mental capacity, because I'm trying to memorize the script and what I was trying to say beforehand, right? But essentially, I want to always, because anyway, essentially, I want to always be able to throw a jab and a cross perfectly without injuring myself and kind of knowing my range. And what's really messing me up is really my feet. So I'm trying to be conscious about my feet and what I'm really doing with that. I don't even know how many crosses I did because I was talking too much, but I'm trying to focus on not overextending my elbow. That's something I messed up with. And my shoulder, whichever one you want to say. But I'm going to finish this out off camera, then we're going to finish out. In Romans chapter 5, Paul essentially talks about how even through suffering we have things to gain, mainly from God in that spiritual context. But essentially how the scripture goes is you suffer, and from sufferings you get perseverance. From perseverance you have a proven character. From your proven character, it gives you hope. Because from those four things, it builds a hope that's virtually unshakable, not even for the things that we do see, but for the things that we don't see, right? That's not just like it's not just a one-time event. That's a chain that happens repeatedly all the time. You know, I take that everywhere I go. Matter of fact, I'll make a video on my whole thing about starting, and I'm gonna make a separate video about that. It's gonna relate, but anyway, the accumulation of good characters, good deposits every day that make you who you are, right? And that doesn't mean that like sorry, I got distracted. But the whole point is that when Paul's writing this, it's not just saying that like you're going to become a good person, right? It's more so demonstrating that good character doesn't just come from good intentions and great practice. You know, it comes from consistent practice over and over and over again, to the point where under pressure, whether you're in a boxing match, whether you're in a heated discussion, whether you're having a difficult conversation with some other people, or whether you want to keep up with your diet, your character is not going to break or fold just because the amount of reps, the amount of iron that you sharpen within yourself, that it's not going to break under pressure. It's not going to crack under pressure. You're not going to fold under pressure, because that's who you are no matter where you go. And it becomes normal to you because you've just done it so often. You know, this is where everything comes together, essentially. Oh, geez, I'm black. This is where everything comes together, okay? Essentially, with every rep that you practice, that's your perseverance building. Every step, every rep that you do, that you correct, is your character building. And eventually, that leads to the hope that you can always do it right all the time, right? And the hope that Paul is talking about is not necessarily a hope this thing gets done. It's not like wishful thinking. It's more so about there's confidence in the future or in your hope because you have constantly proved to yourself all the time that you are capable of what you set out to do. Um, okay. All that life stuff, all those life skills, they all compound over time. Do not underestimate it, because if you do, you might end up missing out on some major returns. And you already know why I like talking about investing. We just did a couple episodes ago about poor man's finances. You know, we love those. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section below. If there's anything you want me to talk about specifically, please leave it down in the comment section. If you have any alternative views on the spiritual portion of this episode, please leave down in the comments, because I don't know everything. I may be missing out on some stuff, but we'll see. Triumphathletic Cold Mint, if you like the drip, please, 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 please. Triumphathletic.net, use code MINT for 10% off your order. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.